I'm Marin Levy, and I would love to tell you why I vote. So, as you may know, in August, we marked the 100th anniversary of the ratification of the 19th Amendment. In other words, it's only been 100 years since we've had the right to vote for women enshrined in our own Constitution. While 100 years might seem like a long time ago, I often think about the fact that my own grandmother, one of my dearest friends when she was still alive, was born in 1911, before, almost a decade before, that right to vote existed. So I do not take it for granted. I think of the countless men and women who made it possible for women to vote. Um, I also take such pride in getting to normally go across the street to our local school where we have a polling place. I love to take our young boys to show them what it means to vote and how special it is that we have this right that I don't take for granted. So I hope you all vote, whether by mail or in person, safely. As I said, this is such a privilege and honor to get to do in our democracy. So please go vote just like I did.
Hi, Duke Law community. I'm here asking you to join me in voting this election season. I vote for a criminal justice system that's free from bias, accurate in its adjudication, and forgiving of those who have shown rehabilitation. I vote for a cleaner environment, habitable for generations to come. And this election season, I'm voting for my daughters and their future to ensure that they can do anything they want without limitations because of their gender. Thank you, and hope to see you at the polls.
I vote because I love voting. Maybe even most of all when I have to stand in line to do it. I love that feeling of collective action. I love standing in line with everybody else at the polling place and knowing that there are people around Durham and around North Carolina and around the country who are doing the same thing, that we're all coming together to make our voices heard and demonstrate our commitment to each other and our democracy. We're all coming from different backgrounds and different perspectives, but our citizenship and our desire to exercise that right to vote, it's the one thing we all have in common. And voting feels like the purest way to share and express how much all of us still believe in the promise of this country. So I love that feeling every day, every election day, every year. I go primaries, major election days, doesn't matter. I just love going to vote. So this year in particular, marking the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment and women's right to vote, I'm especially excited to honor Susan B. Anthony and her reminder to all of us that no matter who we are, someone struggled for our right to vote, and we should use it. So go vote. Have fun.
Hello, my name is Professor Tim Lovelace, and I vote seeking to make democracy work. It's imperative that we put people into office, up and down the ballot, who love justice and who will fight for equality. It's imperative that when there are ballot measures, that we cast our ballot, intent on pressing America to live up to its promise. But inasmuch as I vote, pressing and hoping for brighter todays and tomorrows, I also vote thinking about the past. There were so many people who marched and prayed, who litigated and lobbied, who were beaten and even killed for the right to vote. We should not take the right to vote for granted. Our democracy right now is at a crossroads. Please vote. Our fate is in our hands.
Hello, I'm Michael Tigar, an emeritus professor here at Duke. This right to vote that we're urging you to take the time and trouble to exercise has a history. It has been obtained and protected at great personal cost by a great number of people. And that is because it has been regarded, and rightly so, as transformative in its exercise. I think of 1964. I just finished my first year in law school, and three civil rights workers, Schwerner, Goodman, and Cheney, had gone south to Mississippi to register people to vote. They were arrested by local sheriffs who were part of a faction of the Ku Klux Klan, taken out and shot and their bodies buried. That case of the three murdered civil rights workers was a part of what was reflected in that movie, Mississippi Burning. They stood up along with hundreds of others. So how in the world can we stand down? Let's all get out there and exercise this right to vote in the hope that it will, now as in the past, be transformative in the sense that it has traditionally been. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Jenkins, and I'm a clinical professor of law teaching at Duke Law School. And I want to tell you why I vote. I believe in democracy, and I want to be part of the democratic process of electing our leaders. People fought hard for the right to vote in this country, and I consider it both a duty and a privilege to vote. Plus, as an adult, how often do you get a sticker for doing something good? So don't forget to vote.
My name is Ryke. I co-direct the Duke Environmental Law and Policy Clinic, and I vote. I vote every election that I can because I know that this is a right that not only many people have fought and died for, but it's a right that's been denied to far too many in the history of our nation. Participating by voting is a responsibility for all citizens. Citizen is the highest office in the United States. It is the one on which everything else depends. So I vote because fundamentally it is my responsibility. It is also an opportunity for me to have a voice in my government, in the policies that the governing officials enact, and also so they understand the preferences, the dedication, and the duty that is most important to me. I urge you to do the same. Go out and vote. Make your voice count. In North Carolina, it is illegal for any person to intimidate lawful voting. Go out and vote. Make your voice heard.
I'm Lawrence Baxter, member of the faculty at Duke Law. I want to explain to you why I vote and why I believe that if you are eligible to vote, you must vote. I grew up as a privileged white South African under apartheid South Africa. For those of you who know your history, you will know that the large majority of South Africans were disenfranchised. And predictably, they were also exploited, sometimes quite ruthlessly. I voted in one or two of what were essentially sham elections in the hope that I could have some influence against the government. But the truth is that with the majority not having the vote, that was a fairly futile exercise. I came to the United States in 1985, and in that ensuing period from 1985 until 1994, I became a United States citizen. In 1994, I experienced the joy of being able to vote for the first time in democratic elections, not once, but twice. First time was in the South African elections that led to Nelson Mandela becoming president of South Africa and the end of apartheid. Why? Well, I voted here in North Carolina because South African expatriates were permitted to vote in that election. But I also voted the November soon afterwards in the United States elections. These were off-cycle elections, so there was not a presidential candidate. But I was by that time a citizen. I experienced the joy of having my first democratic voting in 1994 at an age most of the people in democratic countries don't have to wait to. I've already voted in this election, and you don't need me to tell you that this is probably going to be the most important election of our lives, no matter which way it goes. So I'm not going to spend any time on that. You will have heard it from enough people, and most of you will know this yourselves. What I want to do is urge you, if you have not voted and you are eligible, to go and vote. In my view, given how precious that right to vote is, there is no excuse for not voting or for wasting your votes. I was reminded of how much sacrifice was involved when I saw the news reports of Georgians and North Carolinians waiting from before dawn to do early voting over the past few days. It reminded me of the fact that in 1994, previously disenfranchised South Africans waited for 2 or 3 days outside the polling stations to get their opportunity to vote. It is a precious right, hard fought for which many, many people in history have sacrificed their lives. So please do not treat it as something you might or might not do. You owe it to every disenfranchised person in the world to exercise that vote. Finally, please don't waste that vote. It's bad enough to say, as I've heard some people say, I'm not going to vote because both candidates are terrible. Fill in the blanks of where those candidates are. That's a complete abdication of civic responsibility, because it means that you're either not willing to pick the least worst option or the best option. So that's a cop-out. The other abdication takes place when people throw their votes away on a write-in candidate or a party that has no chance of acquiring power. That is also a wasted vote, because it's in effect the same as voting against the least worst candidate or the best candidate. Go and vote. It's a grave responsibility. It's one for which people have sacrificed their lives, and it's one in which we are fortunate to have the privilege to do. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Michael Dockterman. I'm a senior lecturing fellow, and I want to talk to you about why I vote, and I hope you will vote. When I was a boy, I grew up in a small town, and I remember being at a community picnic or dinner, somebody asking one of the adults nearby why he had become a lawyer. It got very quiet. Everybody turned to him, and he realized he had the floor, and he looked around, and he said, I became a lawyer because a lawyer is the only thing that stands between the tyranny of government and the citizen. I remembered that. It's one of the reasons I went to law school. I realized in law school at Duke that there's something else that affects the way the government deals with its citizens, and that's who we put in the government. We get the government we choose. We have the chance to vote. That's not a universal chance. It isn't something that was done in most places in the world and still isn't done in a lot of places in the world. People take the vote for granted. In Athens, which was a democracy, a complete democracy, people didn't want to vote, and they would walk through the town with a rope that had been dipped in red paint to force people to go to the polls, or they would get red paint on their togas. Well, I don't want red paint on my toga, and I want a choice in the government. And that's why I vote. And that's why I've already voted this year. And I hope you will vote as well.